Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and dear audience. On behalf of Conflict and Resilience Research Institute, today I welcome all of you to the webinar episode number 10. Our today's theme is Rohingya Crisis, our perspective from Bangladesh. And before we actually launch into our session, as a tradition, Conflict and Resilience Research Institute wants to acknowledge that it is located on original lands of Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and on the homeland of Metis Nation. We respect the treaties that were made on these territories. We acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past, and we dedicate ourselves to move forward in partnership with indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. And dear audience, some of you, if not all, are aware of Rohingya crisis that was escalated since August 2017. And as a result, we have now nearly 1.3 million of them accommodated only in Bangladesh. Although Rohingya issue is not a new phenomena for Bangladesh, and they are being sheltered in 7 more countries around the globe, it is particularly important that we listen directly from the host country about its experience of managing them in its soil for two reasons at least. First, Bangladesh is still a developing nation, and amidst a host of challenges that it already faces, such a crisis has added an unfamiliar type of challenges that it has never faced before. Second, with each passing days, as the possibility of repatriation fades away, Bangladesh might need to prepare for a long haul about the crisis. Just as a way of update, as of today, according to International Office of Migration's website and data, over 1.3 million, that includes 750,000 those who came on August 25 and thereafter, they are living in 34 camps in southern part of Bangladesh. Government of Bangladesh has established the Office of Refugee Relief and Repatriation Commission, commonly known as RRC, which looks after all the aspects pertaining to the Rohingyas. And of course, we are aware of COVID-19 infection and some of the death cases in the camps and reported by the media. On the justice and accountability side, dear audience, International Court of Justice has delivered an interim order to Myanmar to stop genocide. Given this situation, our today's seminar invited eminent scholars as well administrators from Bangladesh who are directly involved either in managing the camps or have conducted research and ran projects with the Rohingyas. We are going to first listen to their perspectives, followed by question and answer session. Prior to today's webinar, we already hosted two of these in the past with diaspora groups, and some of them might be listening to our today's session as well. In this webinar, many of them raised questions about many of the aspects of Rohingya management, including internet shutdown and others, and we'd be very happy and interested to know about these aspects in today's seminar. So now, without further ado, let me introduce our eminent panelists today. And we start with Professor Dr. Kaosar Afsana, and she is a public health professional who spent nearly 3 decades in the field. She is an MD with MPH from Harvard University, USA, and a PhD from Edith Cowan University, Australia, specializing in public health and social science. She is a professor at BRAC, James P. Grant School of Public Health, BRAC University. Professor Afsana had served BRAC in Bangladesh for over 26 years as a researcher at her early years and later led the largest NGO-run health, nutrition and population program of the BRAC as a director for last 7 years. She herself designed and implemented large-scale successful maternal, newborn, and child health interventions for disadvantaged and marginalized populations in urban slums and rural areas. Her research focuses on reproductive, maternal, newborn, child and adolescent health and nutrition, child development, mental health, health system and fragility, and humanitarian crisis. Professor Afsana has authored books and widely published in journal and books. She plays a critical role in policy influencing and planning in health and nutrition. Her today's talk is doubly important because Conflict and Resilience Research Institute has embarked in two education projects for the adolescents in the camps. Today's theme of the talk is playing and learning children in Rohingya refugee camps in Bangladesh. Our second panelist is an eminent scholar, and he is Professor A.K. Mazharul Islam, and he has been involved in teaching and research for last 26 years in Bangladesh, United States of America, and Thailand. He is educated in Dhaka University, Minnesota State University, and Johns Hopkins University. He chaired the Department of Anthropology at Rshadul University of Science and Technology for the last 12 years. His main areas of interest include health governance and applied medical anthropology. He has been involved in Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health's global study of social autopsy and pulse oximeter, respectively, from its inception since 2006. He is currently the executive director of Institute of Applied Anthropology, Bangladesh. And he has been involved in teaching in Dhaka University, James P. Grant School of Public Health of BRAC University, North-South University, Bangladesh University of Professional, and Mahidol University in Thailand. He is a member of American Anthropological Association, Society of Medical Anthropology, and Asiatic Society of Bangladesh. And next we have Mr. Shamsud Douza, and he is the Additional Refugee Relief and Repatriation Commissioner in the status of Deputy Secretary, and he works directly from the Office of Refugee Relief and Repatriation Commissioner Office, Motel Road, Cox Bazaar. He is one of the veteran civil servant who is stationed in that part of the area for over a couple of years. And today we have our final panelist. He is Mr. Rshadul Islam, and he's a Senior Assistant Secretary and Camp in charge of 11, 12, and 18 number camps. He has been serving in public administration for last 12 years. Prior to this position, he was in DC in Bandarban Hill District, Assistant Commissioner in Pirganj, Rangpur, Executive Magistrate in Rangpur City Corporation and Shahjalal International Airport, Dhaka. And he was also a UNO in Dinajpur. And he has been serving in the present position since November 2019. So, dear audience, you have seen we have a mix of scholars and policymakers slash on the side of administrators. And this is what was the intention of our today's session, to bring these two groups together and listen from them how they are actually experiencing the whole crisis itself. So let's start our original session, and we welcome Professor Dr. Afsana first to speak about the topic that she decided. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Dr. Afsana, floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you very much. And I must thank the organizer for inviting me to this webinar. And though I'm a public health professional and I love to speak on health and other things, but today I'm going to speak about playing and learning. And indeed, it is also associated with public health. So let me start that why it is so important. One is playing, and secondly is learning. So in the Rohingya refugee camps, you know that so many people actually fled from Myanmar due to the atrocities that happened in Myanmar. So, and most, even it is 1 million population, half of the population 0 to 18 years are actually children. So the children actually, they are born, they grow, they thrive, they develop. But within this setting, even in their own country, Myanmar, and when they came to Bangladesh, they're actually living in a refugee camp. So being a refugee is not an easy life. It's a huge challenge for everyone, physically and mentally, both. And this intervention, which is actually BRAC's intervention. Within the, there are many sectors in the camps. This is within the child protection sector. So that humanitarian play lab that BRAC has developed, that actually promotes learning through playing. And this is not new for BRAC. BRAC actually worked with the government of Bangladesh, especially for the for the children in early years, testing out that how play-based learning actually help in learning and also in healing. And BRAC tested the model and also tested the model with the government primary school. And BRAC also has taken the model to Rohingya refugee camp to see that how the children actually participate. So within the child protection sector, because this is UNICEF run intervention, so it's not difficult, but it's also not easy, because the whole concept of play-based learning, it's interesting, but you need to do a lot of experimentation that how it works in that kind of modality. Seemingly that we actually, BRAC has started that intervention in September or October 2017. And from that time, it was going on and changing, evolving. But of course, within that UN framework, but having also to influence the community, that how can you also do a better job, especially for the development. And that development, as I say, it is learning and also healing. And one important thing is that I would like to speak about early childhood development, because early childhood development starts from pregnancy and to 8 years. That is called early childhood period. But this particular intervention, as the child protection sector focuses 0 to 18 years, so that means BRAC has adapted the model. So they adapted the model in a way, they included that pregnancy period, because first 1,000 days is the period when you need to do the intervention. The reason is that the whole development of our brain and other things is happening in that particular first 1,000 days. But don't think that it doesn't happen afterward. It also happens afterward, but you need to create that environment. But that first 1,000 days means it is the conception period, and then beyond that. So there are so many things is going on to do to learn early childhood development. How can you do also play-based learning here, and also to support mothers, caregivers, and the fathers. So fathers' inclusion is also very important. So for the refugee camps, where the language is totally different, because in their country they learn Burmese, and their language is Rohingya language. Rohingya has a script that I actually didn't even know when I started working there. That's actually Arabic script. And it started, probably you know more than me, that what actually they have been doing. So that the dialect is different, but the teaching is going on in Burmese language. But and we in this particular intervention, the Rohingya young girls who are a little bit educated, they are recruited as a volunteer to be trained as a play leader, to teach those children or to play with the children to learn and grow. And this is very important, because when we have started this work, and we found that many children are actually not participating the way they should be participating. So then the people at BRAC, and of course the UN sectors, they realized that it is very critical to include the mental health. So bringing mental health, especially for the children, for their mothers, is very important. And that mental health component is, you need special skills. You know, it's not that anybody could do that mental health support. So they have recruited psychologists, and they have parapsychologists
Dr. Afsana, we have lost the voice. Can you check your audio, please?
It's probably it's an internet problem. I mean, probably she's not in the connection anymore, as I understand.
Yes.
Probably she just lost her connection, uh, and we can suggest her just to uh,
You're right.
yeah can she can just enter again if we should we allow him couple of 1 minute or so that or we'll go to the next
Um, let's wait another 30 seconds and see if she can log in.
yeah that because this is a kind of a set kind of a slot that someone is using. I mean, it's like it's not a very cross dialogue thing. It's more of a
Yeah.
kind of a slot based speech. So so
No, absolutely.
let's
Absolutely. And this is one of the challenges of using technology, and you never know when it will betray you. But we'll just wait a couple of seconds, and then if she's able to. Otherwise, we'll start with Professor Dr. Mazhar if he wishes to do so.
well, I mean, I have no problem. I mean, I'm just thinking that
Yeah.
uh, we can allow her again from where she was just dropped
Hmm.
off. So I'll I will like to share one one slide, a very quick generic slides. Can you see that? I mean, is it visible?
No, not yet. Or else you can send it to me. I can put it up on your behalf if you want.
But I should also
Should be able
be
to
able
write.
to. Um,
Share
I
screen.
shared it couple of I shared it couple of times, but I don't claim myself on an expert of it. I mean, just
Yeah,
um, I clicked the share button and
there is a
it
screen to
showed
share.
me. I mean, it's a. Will you permit me? I mean, probably you have not permit me yet. I mean, it's like
Oh, really?
you need to permit multiple. Yeah, you need to permit multiple slides, multiple persons uh, to allow to share their slides. Um,
Um, so I don't see your
or
slide coming in.
um, it's shown that it's shared, but you're not you're not seeing anything, isn't it?
No, no,
Yes.
So
we don't.
so I guess let me send it to you so that you
Okay,
can just share it. I mean that could be I minimize the kind of problem that we're having right now. I'm sorry for
no problem.
this inconveniences.
No worries.
Uh-huh. Da, da, da.
Please send it to the Creek address, Dr. Mazhar.
I why am I it's not shown in the I'm sorry about all this messages. It's there in the desktop, but when I'm going to send you, it's not even
Professor Afsana has not come back as yet.
Um, just a second. Just a second. It's it's I don't know, all those slides that is there in the
So, Professor Afsana is here.
this.
I'm so sorry.
No,
The
no
whole
problem.
line got disconnected.
No, no worries.
Now,
No
please
worries.
go ahead. I'll add again. Should I
Okay.
start?
Yes,
No, you go ahead.
no, no.
No,
I
no,
mean,
you go. No, no, we you go ahead, Afsanapa. We have not started yet.
Mazhar
Okay,
is
sorry about this.
no problem. Dr. Mazhar, please send your PowerPoint in my CRRIC address, please, and I will host it up
Sure,
when we start. And in the
sure, sure.
meantime, dear audience, we apologize for this little technical glitch. Our panelist is back again, thankfully. And let's start with her again. Thank you, Professor Dr. Afsana. You can go ahead now.
Sorry, I forgot that how where I stopped, but I thought I was discussing about mental health. So
Right.
the mental health is one of the component which was not part of early childhood development. So that's one of the thing actually included here to support not only the children, also the caregivers and the others as well. So what we have seen that over in 2 years that children actually even though you always feel that children are feeling good or and this is a good environment for them, but some of the children who are actually participating, you can see that they're sitting aside, not talking to anyone, not participating like other children. So you could immediately understand that there are some problems. So the mental health counselor who are there, they actually they visit the houses, talk to the parents, and then slowly supporting the family that how can they also support the children to develop but come out of that trauma, because the trauma they have been carrying, that is inside, so that they should come out of the trauma. So that play based learning actually helping the children not only for learning, as I said, and healing, but this mental health support is also adding value. So for this is really important globally, that when we discussed about this early childhood development and play-based learning, these are issues coming because you can see that even the children in normal environment, that how actually the education system are overburdening these children with so much pressure coming from school, from studies. Everybody's expectation is very different because this whole education system is so different. So I feel that this kind of play-based learning, if you can develop not only in the humanitarian setting, but across the country, the whole education curriculum. I think everywhere in the world, people are thinking that how we can change the education curriculum. So time has come to change all those education curriculum to play-based learning environment, but it's not like formal like us that we are educated. And learning could happen without schooling. Learning could happen in many areas. So we need to come out of all those ideas and think very differently. How can that education could be revolutionized to bring to be inclusive? This is very important, and especially in this arena where we can see that, especially the sustainable development goal, that the way the 17 goals are connected, you cannot disconnect one from the other. So we can easily, with the COVID-19 crisis, we could easily understand that how that environmental imbalance is actually affecting the health and other things. And what health is impacting, it is the economy or productivity. So there are many issues. And even in this COVID-19 crisis, not only in the Rohingya refugee camps, across the world, the whole education system is also uh, affected. So how could you come out of all those things and make education in a way that the children could participate in a playful manner, and they have their development, the cognitive development, socio-emotional skills, and other skills could be much better in that particular environment. So I would, at this moment, what is actually happening, that normal environment that I'm talking about, because of the COVID-19 crisis, so many things actually are shut down. So BRAC, in fact, is trying to engage with the children and experimenting with the UN to see that whether a play-based learning could be done remotely. So firstly, they have started, of course, the counseling of the mothers and fathers both, and bringing the children. So remote learning, and in Bangladesh also there is some problem, especially with the network connection in the refugee camp. I know there are many factors behind that, but I think to have a congenial environment and a better environment for any human beings, not to be deprived of this kind of opportunity, where the life is not a good, is not in a better environment, if we don't allow this kind of remote counseling environment. I mean, through better telephone connections or internet connections, I think the children will be deprived. And if we deprive one generation, so they will be deprived forever, and that's not going to have a better future for the world. I'm not talking about only about the Rohingya refugees, but it will impact the global world. So I'll stop here, but I'll talk afterward.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Afsana, for your brilliant description of mental aspects of the education, which we also saw in our field work. That is a huge factor. Now let's welcome Dr. Mazhar, and your slide is up, I believe. Floor is yours, Dr. Mazhar.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kausar Ahmed, and the honorable members of the panel. Um, I know Dr. Kausar Afsana for so many years during my small span of BRAC days, and I know how much she is dedicated to the work she is doing. And I my take is more into some of socio-cultural anthropological aspect which is not drawn from a specific study though. I seek apology on that part at the outset, because it is important that we need to talk um, on some empirical evidence-based research, like Dr. Afsha Kausana did. But my one is more of some anthropology, socio-economic anthropological aspect that is uh, important when we think about Rohingya community in Bangladesh. So I will start a little some of the very known aspect of the community that has already been discussed time and again. And after showing that little slides, then I'll go some of the points that I really want to discuss. So you see, if we can go to the next slide, that you see the the arrival of Rohingya population in Bangladesh over time. That you see, it's in 2017 that is the main influx of the arrival of the Rohingya population here, and Bangladesh and the rest of the world is more into the Rohingya thing after 2017, when the huge influx of Rohingya people has come to this land called Bangladesh, particularly in the Cox Bazaar area, where there are two sub districts where they have been located. So we see that after 2017, the problem, what we call crisis, and the word, the acronym crisis, when we call Rohingya, we always add that word crisis together. So it's a, this is Rohingya crisis seems to a synonymous word, like it is that Rohingya is a crisis. So it also entails something. So if we can go to the next slide. So about these statistics, that's And I'll just give you I'll seek your attention to this this is a small study done by UNHCR itself, and I just share some of their findings. And you see the vulnerable population here. It's like you see the single mother 60%, and you see the medical conditions are not acute medical condition 5%. And if you see, and if you just sum up this population, this is 35%. So you see that 35% of the existing population of Rohingya is vulnerable. It's extremely vulnerable. So this is the demographic composition that we need to know. And then the next slide is some of the socio-cultural aspect, that although polygyny, polygamy is formally prohibited in Myanmar government when they were there, but it has been evident that they have been involved in polygamous relationship in terms of marriage, where they have got multiple marriage, and they had and women and girls has got their status only through marriage. There is no other means to get their status. The only status they got through marriage. So this is one of the social aspect that we need to also think when we think about the Rohingya population. So next, and as I already said, that's the only that's the marriage is the only social and economic security of the Rohingya women or girls. And they had to take the whole lot of traditional roles, starting from the child care to the food preparation to the caring of the elderly people and everything. So women, what I want to say is that the features of their life needs to also needs to be understood when we think about a population called Rohingya. And then the next one is probably on. Can we go to the? Um, so there is a huge debate going on whether a huge section of population are going to uh, be trafficked. The women and girls are trafficked and smuggled through different chains from Cox Bazaar to different other cities in Bangladesh and to some other countries around the globe. So this is another factor that is there. So is there any other? Yes, and I'll say some of the aspect of their features which is there in the Rohingya population. So there are some vulnerabilities. You see that their older population is huge, and although there is a big group of younger population as well, and the being female is a vulnerability in the camp. And of course, as you said, there were 5 to 6% disabled population is there. And then the most important thing, that it's from 1982 that they have been seeing these atrocities in Myanmar and then afterwards. So they are a traumatic population. We need to understand that very well as well. And of course, since they're in the camps, they have got lack of spaces, and that lack of physical spaces also at some point give the some kind of congestion that leads to their congestion or lack of space in the mental arena as well. So that gives them that there's some cultural stigma about their mental health. And of course, that comes with the substance misuse, sexual and gender based violence, and that also breaks their social and moral traditions that they have for a long time. And of course, the identity problem is a huge problem, and the separation of the parents and relatives, and the separation from the community members are the points that we need to also see when we see the Rohingya population. Probably I have another one or two slides. Yeah, and you see, this is lack of food security. Probably it's not here in Bangladesh. It's basically in Myanmar. that they have got the lack of food security. And but in Bangladesh, we see that they're kind of fed by different parties. But the problem is that they are being unable to work, and they are unable to pursue further education. And of course, the poverty is something that they inherit from birth. Poverty is the thing they always see. And their lack of all kinds of services back home in Myanmar, lack of freedom for all kinds of freedom, lack of freedom that was in Myanmar. So they have got their lack of activities because they are having in camp lives in Bangladesh. And of course, they have got a lot of other mental health issues. So these are some of the macro level features when we see a community called Rohingya community, that we need to think about this from the beginning, and then we need to have some um, remarks or comments about the population, because these are some of the facts that we actually need to know when we need to do something about this population. So I'll just end this slide thing here. I'll have having this thing said. I will come up with four or 5 points now. If you see the slides, I mean, you see that they have got a huge problem of cultural or social authenticity, because you see they are not even they are not refugee. I mean, they are not called refugee. And you see they are not of the citizen of Myanmar even. Their citizenship is denied there for a long time, and they were stateless in their own country. And there is not a single population like this in the world that who are, I mean, segregated of their voting rights for such a long period of time. They have not been allowed to have their own concrete made houses in their own land, because they cannot do it. They cannot have their own fence beside their houses. So this is the community. And when they came to Bangladesh, these are basically camps, and Bangladesh government is not in a position that they will provide them a kind of a settled territory where they will make some homestead or something, or they are not in a position to give them a formal education or job, because that will lead them to a kind of a settlement in Bangladesh, which Bangladesh government doesn't want, because Bangladesh cannot afford that 1.2 million refugee right now, apart from their huge population burden they have. So think about their social and cultural fluidity, that limbo that are having from the legal and social aspect, that they are not even a refugee. They don't have a state. And when they think of a repatriation process, they know that they don't have a home in their so-called home, because they don't have any shelter in Myanmar back. So when Bangladesh government is trying to repatriate them, they themselves are so reluctant to go back to their own home, because they know their home is not safe anymore. I mean, it was never been safe for the last 1 or 2 generation. So you see this fluidity, this lack of this cultural and social authenticity that this population have. So this is one thing that we need to work, how to authenticize this particular group. That is the first macroeconomic political question that we need to deal with, that the authenticity, the question of authenticity. And if you go to the second problem, that is the assimilation. You see, it's not really possible to assimilate them with the mainstream Bengali population, because if you assimilate them with the mainstream population by building them separate houses, giving them jobs, and giving their higher education, means in the college education or university education inside the territory of Bangladesh, they will have their own land here, because they will see that Bangladesh is their own country, which Bangladesh government never want. So if so this is not what Bangladesh government has done. they have done it from a humanitarian altruistic standpoint, because even Bangladesh did not sign that refugee treaty, that they are not bound to give them that shelter as because they are not the signatory, but they have given the shelter because of the humanitarian ground. So that's one, that humanitarian altruism basis cannot be a permanent kind of a thing. So that needs to be bounded by the legal and practicality of the situation of the population, both from the home population and also the Rohingya population. So that's the problem of assimilation. And of course, the repatriation problem, that it will never happen from the perspective of the Rohingya population. They need to be done by from external forces like the governmental forces. The community is not will not be doing that. So what is the option? The option is they need to be relocated, or they need to be a third country resettlement. So that is not also going to happen. So that's make the situation more complicated. So for and furthermore, they are denied of a life, which is called a dignified life, because they are stateless and even they are not refugee. So 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 I don't know how to discuss this, because this population is part of the ethnic cleansing. If you see the history of the Myanmar, they were only citizen of that country for 8 or 10 years, and not more than that, and they have been denied all the rights in the state of Rakhine for so many long years. And I'm really I'm really very unhappy that that Aung San Suu Kyi was given the Nobel Prize for Peace and Human Rights, and who did not say anything about this I mean, and a lack of violation of rights for so many long period of time from the Rohingya population in her own land. So these are some of the very important points that we need to always think when we think about a population called Rohingya. And my last point is the regional thing, that you see SARC and ASEAN, they did not have come up with any kind of solution as yet. It's as if it is only the responsibility of the country called Bangladesh. You see, I mean, there is another country who took some responsibility, which is Malaysia. But you see, even in Thailand, there is a very small population. Even in Saudi Arabia, there is a very small population. And if you think about the other big countries, first world countries, where Dr. Ahmed is also located, Canada, Australia, and US, they only took a burden of very small population. So you see, nobody is taking that responsibility. So even the regional the strength that the foreign minister of Bangladesh once was advocating, that it is a regional problem, so we need to activate SARC and ASEAN to shake the responsibility. But we see the state of failure on that part, because SARC is not active at all, and ASEAN is not taking responsibility. So I know I have come up with some sporadic problems, in a very sporadic manner. But these are some of the very important things that we need to consider when we think about their micro level problem, like child mortality, maternal mortality, immunization, all kinds of education, health, and every right. But if we cannot solve these macro level problems, we cannot be able to ensure those rights in the camps. So with this, I'll end now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mazhar, for, I would say, a very well rounded description of the issue at hand, and especially bringing the regional matters and giving us a snapshot from the macro level, and also pointing out that if we cannot address most of the macro level issues, micro level problem will persist. Thank you. So we'll move to our next panelist today, and as we introduced, he is right from the ground zero, if we may say, Mr. Shamsud Douza, and floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Rohingya crisis is not a new crisis. Actually, Cox Bazar district itself created by Rohingya crisis. If we back on 1784, actually at that time, first Rohingya influx was happened at that time. Not only Rohingya, at that time the Arakan was separated, independent, some kingship, kingship or other things. King Bodapaya from Myanmar side, the Burma side, actually conquered Arakan, and huge Rohingya fleet from that part to this part. Not only Rohingya at that time, now those people, those who are Rakhine, living in Cox's Bazar, Potuakhali, Kolatoli, and Taltoli sub-district of Barguna. At that time, they came in actually in Bangladesh. This is the so this is not a new problem. It's more than 200 years, 236 or 40 years. Before that, the problem was also before, but the main problem started from that side. Then at that time, the then British government sent Mr. Hiram Cox to Cox's Bazar, and somehow he took the responsibility of refugee at that time, and he managed well. And the Cox's Bazar, the local people as well as the Rohingya people and as well as the Rakhine people, actually they loved Mr. Hiram Cox, and the Cox's Bazar named that Mr. Cox. They established a Bazar market, and they named it Cox's Bazar. Earlier, the name of Cox's Bazar, it was Fenwa or other thing. Some debate also. There are some debate. Some people called it Fenwa, like it's yellow color, and some people called it Palonki. Actually, there are so many Palongs. If you consider the name of Ukhia, there are more than 100 or 200 Palong. Palong Khali, Raja Palong actually. So the name the name Cox Bazar is very much related to Rohingya crisis. Not only this time, and the crisis started at that time. People claim that in history it's debate also. People more than 10,000 Rohingya Muslim died, and people stayed in mainly Ukhia Teknaf and nearby Bandarban, and there are some similarity between these two lands. Actually, the name of other side in Myanmar, like Tomru, inside Myanmar or Myanmar boundary, the name is Tomru. In Bangladesh side, the name is Tomru. Some name in, if you consider the name of Ukhia and Teknaf, some area name is White Kong and other. It's like Myanmar name, but in the other side there are some name. It's from Bangla name, like Bolir Bazar, Jele Bazar, Fishery Ghat. This is the actually there is a historical relation between these two country. Earlier, this was not established a country, and people from Cox's Bazar, they always went to from this is called now Kosturaghat. From here, the launch started, and they went in early in the morning. They are in the ship, and evening they went Akiyab and some markets and other things they back. So this is the historical relation, and there is some language and culture. This is Rohingya dialect is near about actually. This is not like Chittagong language. Actually, Chittagong language is very much distorted in area. If in North Chittagong its accent is one kind of, in South Chittagong is different, and but the Rohingya language is very much similar to only Teknaf area. And Uki area, it's about 70 or 80%, but Teknaf area, it's similar to 90%. So language is a factor, and the religion, this is also one factor. And another thing, there is another relationship. If you go to Balukhali area, if you saw the customs, some customs point, it was established in 1954. So there is business relationship between Myanmar and Bangladesh at that time. So after 1784, in the year 1824, British government actually captured Arakan state, and created another problem. And British ruled in 1948. Probably in 1948, Burma got independence. And another big massacre actually happened in the year probably Second World War. The Rohingya people actually, they supported British government, and the Myanmar has so many ethnicity. Bamar is the main ethnicity. Bamar actually, there is one kind of conflict between Bamar and others. Not only Rohingya people, Bamars and others, there is some conflict between. So, Bamar people, the main Bamar people, they support Japan, and Rohingya people actually support British. That's why after independence, the Bamar, the majority think that Rohingya are a traitor. At that time, they did not believe that. In the Second World War, more than 20,000 Rohingya people killed, and most of them fled in Bangladesh. And they actually stayed in Ukhia, Teknaf, in Cox Bazaar, in somewhere in Chittagong. If you go to Chittagong in Firingi Bazar, you know so many restaurants, Burmese restaurant. In Bangladesh, there are so many primary school named Burmese primary school. In Tekna, Pukia, Mohesh Khali, in Cox's Bazar, in city, in Bazar Gata, there is a school named Burmese school. Actually, so many people came from Burma and they established a school, and government actually named this school as Burmese school. But after but the problem is, after independence, father of Aung San Suu Kyi, he decided that everything will be solved. All are the same status, and at that time, more than 10 members elected as member of parliament, and they took the charge, and some of their students actually selected as president of Rangoon University. And this was happening, and actually they are living, and he tried to solve the problem. But in the year 1962, the military captured, and other than this, actually, some of Rohingya, like Jamaatul Mujahideen and other, they were trying to establish and separate Rohingya state or Arakan state. And other part, actually, those who are Rakhine, they are not Bamar part. They are also tried. Now they are actually fighting with Myanmar military. They tried to establish separate state. There is another conflict, and Neuwin actually, he is not interested to give any right to the Rohingya people. And in 1962, actually, the Rohingya Jamaatul Mujahideen surrendered to Neuwin. And Neuwin, what he did, he captured all the right of the Rohingya people. And Rohingya people, some of them, at the time, 1962, at that time, so many people, Rohingya people actually also fled in Bangladesh. After independence, Bangladesh got independence 71. Before and after 71, there are so many Rohingya people fled in Bangladesh. They are now living. The local community, actually, they said in Kolatoli or other areas, some Rohingya actually, they are now, some of them got actually identity card of Bangladesh. Some people actually, some claim that in Naikhanchori, so many Rohingya people, actually, those who are, so many Rohingya people live. In the year 1978, actually, the first big massacre happened in Rohingya, Operation Nagamin, or at that time, more than 200,000 people fled from Didan Burma to Bangladesh. And 1977 and 1978, and government did agreement with Burma, repatriation agreement. At that agreement, government signed that within 6 months, Myanmar repatriated all the Rohingyas, and soon government repatriated started, and within 1 year all Rohingya repatriated. At that time, government established 13 camps. Out of 13 camps, 12 camps established in Ukhia and Teknaf. Now, Ukhia and Teknaf, one camp in actually nearby Ukhia, actually Gumdum area. It's located in Bandarban. Actually, district is Bandarban. Geographically, it's very near to Ukhia. And the border is very close from, actually, I think 2 or 3 kilometers from Gumdum. And at that time, so more than 200,000 people came, all of them repatriated, rather 10,000 died. At that time, 10,000 people died in the camp, diarrhea or other disease or malnutrition, and 10,000 people fled from actually camp. In the year 1982, Didan Burma government enacted a citizenship law. That citizenship law actually is barrier. What Mazhar said, citizenship or ethnicity. I forgot that when British government left from Myanmar, actually they listed some ethnicity. Unfortunately, or what they actually discarded the name of Rohingya from ethnicity. This is one of the major problems actually created by Myanmar. Some studies says that before separation of Bangladesh, Pakistan and India, some Rohingya leaders actually they contacted with Jawaharlal Nehru and Muhammad Ali Jinnah. And what Muhammad Ali Jinnah or they said this was too late actually that time, and this is one of the reason that Myanmar people actually did not believe Rohingya. And in the year 19 before from 1982 to 1991 there are a small influx happened, but in the year late in 91 to February March or 92 there was another operation, military operation happened in Myanmar, and more than 250,000 people came in Bangladesh, especially Ukhia, Teknaf and Gumdum area of Bandarban, which is very close to actually our Ukhia. And government registered more than 250,000 Rohingya, and government established 20 camps. And at that time, April or May, government signed a repatriation agreement with Myanmar government, and September 92 repatriation started. Actually, from September 92 to 97, repatriation is going to full swing. After that, the repatriation process is slow. And from 92 to 2005, there are more than 235,000 people are repatriated and 15,000 left. And Myanmar stopped repatriation unilaterally. And rest of them actually, at that time, government established 20 camps, 18 camps or abolished, and 2 camps. What Afsana ma'am said, one is Kutupalong registered camp, another is Noyapada registered camp. Now the population is, those 2 camps is 35,000. So they got refugee status. Other than, and after 2009, there are some small influx. 2009, 12 influxes bigger than 2009, but the influx in 2016, 9th October. This is also a big influx, near about 100,000. I think the UNHCR or other actually gave the data. It's near about 87,000. At that time, more than near about 100,000 people came in actually Ukhia and Teknaf in Bangladesh, and they were living in makeshift camp. RRC office is not looking after those people at that time. Rather, IOM, DC office and MOFA actually looking after those people. And the massive influx happened in 25th August 2017. Actually, now the people, more than near about 750,000 people came at 25th August 2017 to 2018. Now some people, a nominal number of people, 1 or 2, but major influx happened from August to January, February or March. In a single day, in September 2017, in a single day, more than 40,000 people came in Bangladesh. This is huge. And in first some days, actually, the people mainly came in from land boundary. Actually, it's called Tomru. This is near Balukhali, it's located at Bandarban. It's the sub-district name is Naikhanchori and union name is Gumdung. It's Tomru and other some area, Tomru and other area. People came from this office, and first 2 weeks actually there is no man, only female and children came in first. What we saw, if we look back that, actually this is totally I could not describe it. It's actually what I saw. Actually, in the jungle, actually, children was born in the jungle, and so many children and female. At that time heavy rain falls. At that time they were waiting in front of road and in our CIC office. I visited several times. I visited at border area. There are so many people, thanks to the host community as well as Bangladeshi people, actually they welcome those people. They actually they gave the shelter, and others, even school are closed at that time. This is the in a single day from 5,000 to for receiving so many people and giving them food and other issue is not a matter. In fast some 5 or 6 days there is nobody from UN organization or INGO or any other. But after sometimes everybody came up and in some way we give them food and shelter. The first week is very actually difficult. There is nothing. Rain is coming. Rain, severe rain. Uh, we open all our community space in the camp as well as school, and they got shelter in. Actually, we gave them only one meal, and some of local people actually they give them only some one meal. After some days, actually, UN organization like UNHCR, IOM, WFP, and other ACF and other organization actually came up. BRAC also came up from the very beginning. What BRAC did, they established so many toilets. This is actually the there is some debate about the quality of toilets, but at that time the quality is not a matter. Establishing in a quick time and quick manner is important. And now the camp actually at that time we cannot think the influx. We thought that the influx number was 200,000, but the people and government allocated 2,000 acre of land. But the number is daily increasing. At that time we actually communicated government, and 2,000 acre lands it actually increased 4,000, and now the camp area is 6,500 acre, near about 26 or 27 square kilometer. And we divided this camp into, for administering the camp, we divided the camp is into now 32 camps, and old 2 camps, 34 camps. Out of 32, from camp 1 to 20 and some extension, 25 camps in Ukhia sub-district, and 7 camps, 21 to 27, 7 camps actually in Teknaf, and added with 2 Kutupalang registered camp. Now the camp is number is 34. And as soon as actually the coordinated, so in Cox Bazaar 9 UN organization is working now. UNHCR, IOM, WFP, UNFP, and 9 UN organization, and local NGO and INGO, more than 150 NGOs are working. The first challenge in the early days, the first challenge is to provide food and shelter. First, we think that first our thinking is to save those lives, not only thinking and other things. That's why we are at the time giving emphasis only on giving food and hygiene. What that establishing some toilet and water facilities. That's why so many toilets now. The total population, there are some debate about population. How many population in Rohingya camps? There are some debate. Somebody says 1 million. It's near about actually 1 million. It's near about government of Bangladesh and UNHCR conducted joint registration. Earlier, some people says that it's more than 1 million. It's near about 1 million. Now the problem is Bangladesh is a land hungry country. We have not enough land. What Mr. Mazhar mentioned, actually land scarcity is UNHCR and other government, they have some sphere standard, how many a family, how many square meter or how many square feet land or how many toilets. Now the toilet, we have sphere standard toilet, but we have not enough land. Actually already we restricted our, where the camp is situated, it was actually reserve forest. Earlier we restricted our reserve forest. Now for the sake of humanity, we actually, and what I forgot, our honorable Prime Minister, she visited the camp in 12 September, she visited Kutupalang camp. At that time, what she mentioned, if we fed 160 million people, then why not we feed 1 million people? That's the spirit of from our honorable Prime Minister. And 14 September, there was a meeting held in Prime Minister office, is presided by the then Principal Secretary Kamal Chaudhary. Actually, from that meeting decision, the RRC office actually got the responsibility from management of all FDMNs, and earlier this office actually is responsible for only for registered refugee management. From that, after that, we actually got the responsibility from all FDMN. Now, what Afsana mentioned, the Rohingya, about Rohingya children education. The problem is actually now there is two types of education. One is two registered camp. There is a education system from elementary level to class 8. It's actually government approved this, but in FDMN camp from 6 to 14 years we give it's called learning center or temporary learning center. More than 3,000 learning center actually, mainly some mathematics, life skill, and Myanmar language. And the problem is actually one teacher from our host community and one teacher from actually Rohingya community for Myanmar language. And government and UNICEF, on behalf of government, Ministry of Primary Mass and Mass Education and UNICEF, actually they developed a learning competency framework arrangement or agreement. It's going on, it's not finalized, but now we gave them education to some elementary from age 5 to 6, from 14. There are so many learning center. Government did not give permission to formal or other education. This is a big debate. Education, the government main target is to send back them to their original country. What Mr. Mazhar said about repatriation, or rather repatriation, is a big issue. Actually, I got a chance to talk with some Myanmar. What Myanmar? There is a bilateral meeting between Myanmar and Rohingya community leader. What Rohingya community leader? Their demand only 2 or 3. One demand is safety and security. Actually, they are not safe and secured in and another is ethnicity or citizenship. From 1982 citizenship law, actually they are not citizen or resident of the country. Even they did not get the secondary citizenship, what they call national citizen. Rather, they got a national verification card. What national verification card? If they are trying to receive national verification card, they have signed an undertaking, you are coming from Bangladesh. This is one problem. And the Rohingya community leader, we are not Bangladeshi, we are the son of that soil. This is one problem. This is, so citizenship is a big issue. 2 teams from Myanmar actually, 4 days discussion between Myanmar, Rohingya community leader and this is, there is not a fruitful discussion. There was not a fruitful discussion at all. And there are so many, near about 40,000 orphan people, orphan children in our Rohingya camp. Actually, UNICEF and our Ministry of Social Welfare, they surveyed. Actually, out of them, 8,000 have both lose their father and mother. Now, what Bangladesh government did?
If I can intervene, sorry, just for the sake of time, if you kindly wrap it up so that we can allow the next speaker to continue. Thank you. Go ahead, and you can conclude. No worries.
Hello.
You can go ahead and conclude, Mr. Douza. Yeah.
Now I want to some COVID. COVID is, so everybody thinking about COVID. So we took several initiatives. From the early in the March, we restricted only food distribution, medical facilities, hygiene and wash, if anything necessary. And actually, human resource, actually, we give the instruction, 20%, 10 to 20% human resources will move to Rohingya camp and 10 or 20% vehicle. This is, so now in Rohingya camp, 1 million people. Number of total tests is 832. Number of total positive patient is 55. Now number of death is 5, and total number of recovery 13. And another 37 actually they are now under treatment. And for their treatment facilities, actually our plan is to establish 1900 bed SARI and isolation center. SARI means severe acute respiratory infection center and isolation treatment center. Out of 1900 we established, now the total number of 500 bed already established, and the number of Rohingya patient is not that much, so host community people actually treated there. And so Rohingya community, we are not worried about actually COVID. Our plan is, well, if anything not happen, by the grace of Almighty, COVID situation is in, I think, better than in Rohingya camp. The population density is average 40,000. In some camps, actually those camp whose camp situated in nearby road, and the density per square kilometer was 70 or 80,000, but the infected number is 55. This is COVID situation. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Douza, for giving us, I would say, a quite comprehensive update about the camp administration and also drawing inferences from history. So now we welcome our next panelist, Mr. Rshadul Islam, who is a camp in charge. And Mr. Rashid, you need to unmute the mic, please. And he's also in Cox Bazaar, the ground zero. Thank you. Floor is yours.
থ্যাংক ইউ। আমি প্রথমে ধন্যবাদ জানাতে চাই আজকের অনুষ্ঠানের সম্মানিত হোস্টকে আমাকে এখানে সুযোগ করে দেওয়ার জন্য। দ্বিতীয়ত আমি শুভেচ্ছা এবং অভিনন্দন জানাতে চাই আমার পূর্ববর্তী প্যানেলিস্টদের। আমি তাদেরকে শুভেচ্ছা, অভিনন্দন এবং শ্রদ্ধা জানিয়ে আমি আমার বক্তব্য শুরু করতে চাই। আমি মূলত ক্যাম্প ইনচার্জ হিসেবে এখানে 7 মাস থেকে দায়িত্ব পালন করতেছি।
রাশেদ, শোনা যাচ্ছে না?
Mr. Rashid, we lost your voice audio. Can you check, please?
I guess we lost his connection. He can just come again.
Yeah. Before Mr. Rashid joins us, let's take some questions. I'm just concerned. For the sake of time today, I think I would flash the first question here, and one of our audiences, he has this question, and I think he's more interested to know why and how Rohingyas are fleeing through boats to undertake perilous journeys outward, and what the government of Bangladesh is trying to help them out. So it's an open question, because all of our panelists are from Bangladesh and they have some first-hand knowledge, so I leave it up to the panelists to respond to the question.
I think government can answer it better.
Can I say actually?
Yeah.
The recent demography of Rohingya in Bangladesh, what Mr. Mazhar said, 50% or 55% out of the population, 55% of the population is children, and out of Rohingya population, 52% are female, 48% male. On the other hand, in Malaysia and other countries, most Rohingyas are male. So there is some relationship or other issue in Myanmar. Those Rohingya who are living in Myanmar, they search partner. Actually, they send money to the agent, and the local agent or international agent, actually they are involved in. So Bangladesh, they are involved in this trafficking. Bangladesh government is trafficking, actually trying to restrict the trafficking. Nowadays, more than 400 people actually the boat capsizing, and some Rohingya died. Other 400 people actually they are now in the Rohingya camp. Earlier, actually Bangladesh government received those people. due to COVID, they are quarantined in our transit center. Actually, we established 2 transit center. The 400 people actually quarantined. Now, after this incident, we are very much concerned about it. Our law enforcement agencies and other agencies are working, but sometimes the demographical imbalance in Malaysia and others country, actually the demand of Rohingya people in Malaysia is increasing. Actually, they actually send money through hundi and others way, and it's a huge money. You cannot actually sometimes we cannot think about it. So most the Malaysian, most of the people are from female. So this is actually happening. We are trying to resolve the issue.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can
Thank
I
you.
can I also respond to the question? Thank you,
Please.
because I feel that one of the thing we must remember that yes, the Bangladesh government, I think was very generous and has been very generous to support the Rohingya refugees coming to Bangladesh, and supported wholeheartedly not only the government, the people, our colleague from the government he already mentioned, but I feel that the whole world, I don't think that they see that how that Myanmar is making all those problems in their own country on their own citizens. So that's the reality. And people actually forget that these people are, even though historically, I am historically from Afghanistan, my predecessor came from Afghanistan. So do you ask me to go back to Afghanistan? No, this is my country. So I'll be staying in Bangladesh. So if a people, wherever they come from, if they stayed in a country and whatever is that route, I don't want to go into that, but I feel very sad when the whole world is expecting that Bangladesh should be given shelter to Rohingya refugees. How do people expect that? That multilateral discussion is going on. Nobody's looking into the issues. And you already mentioned, Ms. Dr. Ahmed, at the beginning that in November 2019, there was an international tribunal court, and what actually was discussed. This is a genocide. So if this is the genocide, and even now the military or Myanmar government is actually continuing the persecution and the throwing the Rohingya population to Bangladesh. And whole world is expecting that Bangladesh should be giving refuge. Bangladesh is very kind enough to provide all those support. How long they want Bangladesh to provide support to Rohingya population? I feel sad because Rohingya population is becoming a global problem. So if we don't resolve the problem, this is continuing not only in Bangladesh, across the world, and that's what we have been seeing, that in 2 seconds, one person is forcibly displaced. And if this is going to continue, I don't know that what would be the future of the world. So we need to be very tolerant and need to solve all those problems, not to create more problems, especially in the issues that you can resolve. So I'll stop.
Dr.
Rashad joined.
Dr. Mazhar, you wanted to respond. Yeah, go ahead, please.
No, I was saying that government can respond it very well. I mean, the question was like how Bangladesh will respond to the influx of the. You see, in the last month there was a boat going on the Bay of Bengal for 2 weeks, and when the COVID was going on, and the members of Myanmar, refugee community, they were just floating in the ocean for weeks after weeks, and nobody is taking the responsibility. And and there were some international community who were saying that why not Bangladesh is taking them, because they have taken millions, and what is the problem of taking some other more? So this is a stupid question. I mean, this is that if someone takes 1 million, they need to take more. This should not be a bargaining point. I mean, there are other communities around the world. I mean, they need to take some responsibility. I mean, who are saying that Bangladesh should take it? Why don't they take it? I mean, this is the common global responsibility. They are the citizens of the world. We all are citizens of the world, and we need to take the responsibility. It is not the duty of the neighboring country like Bangladesh only. India is a big neighbor. You know, Thailand, Malaysia. I mean, there are a lot of other neighboring countries as well. And think about the global leaders. I mean, who has taken the responsibility? So these are the points that we need to really, really think it seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mazhar. Mr. Rshadul Islam is back again. And dear audience, we apologize once again today for technical glitch. And as you understand, both of our panelists, Mr. Douza and Mr. Rshadul Islam, joined us from Cox Bazaar. Mr. Rshadul Islam, floor is yours. And dear audience, I forgot to mention that he will be delivering his part in Bengali, and we'll be subtitling his part of the speech in English later on. Please keep tuning in. So, Mr. Rshadul Islam, floor is yours now. Go ahead, please.
জি আপনাকে ধন্যবাদ এবং আমি
Dr. Ahmed, have you noticed there is a sound coming on from some corner? You know, there's a noise coming on from one part. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if we can stop that, I mean, you know, there is a noise that comes from a place. I mean, I don't know from which place, but that is distracting our.
শুনতে পাচ্ছেন?
জি
হ্যাঁ, আপনার একটা ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ড নয়েজ হচ্ছে, সেই নয়েজটা আপনি বন্ধ করতে পারেন। প্রবাবলি ফ্যানের আওয়াজ হতে পারে।
নয়েজ আচ্ছা, জাস্ট এ মিনিট।
থ্যাংক ইউ।
জি এখন কি শব্দটি স্পষ্ট শোনা যাচ্ছে?
This is better now. হ্যাঁ, this is better now.
থ্যাংক ইউ। আমি বুঝতে পারি না যে আমি কোথায় আসলে বাদ করেছি। আমি যেটা বলতে চাচ্ছিলাম যে আমি মূলত এখানে ক্যাম্প ইনচার্জ হিসেবে গত 7 মাসে আমার যে অভিজ্ঞতা, আমরা যেভাবে কাজ করেছি, কাজ করতে গিয়ে আমার কাছে দুটি দিক এখানে স্পষ্ট হয়ে উঠেছে। একটা হচ্ছে যে অ্যাডমিনিস্ট্রেটিভ দিকটি, আর একটি হচ্ছে যে হিউম্যানিটেরিয়ান সাইডটি। তো কাজ করতে যে অভিজ্ঞতাটার আমি মুখোমুখি হয়েছি বা আমার কাছে যে উপলব্ধিতে যেটা এসেছে সেটা আমি আপনাদের সাথে মূলত শেয়ার করবো। তো ক্যাম্প ইনচার্জ হিসেবে আমরা যারা এখানে দায়িত্ব পালন করি, তারা মূলত এখানে দেশি বিদেশি সরকারি বেসরকারি যে সংস্থাগুলোই ক্যাম্পে কর্মরত আছে তাদেরকে নিয়ে সমন্বয়ের কাজটা মূলত আমরা এখানে করে থাকি। আর আমাদের এই সমন্বয়ের মূল উদ্দেশ্যটাই থাকে হচ্ছে যে ত্রাণ বিতরণের যে ডুপ্লিকেশনটা হয় সেটা যাতে পরিহার করা যায়, প্রয়োজনীয় মানবিক ত্রাণ সহায়তা থেকে কোনো রোহিঙ্গার জন্য বাদ পড়ে সেই জিনিসটি নিশ্চিত করা, অতিরিক্ত ত্রাণ যাতে কেউ দিতে না পারে প্রয়োজন অতিরিক্ত সেটি নিশ্চিত করা, আইন শৃঙ্খলা পরিস্থিতি সমুন্নত রাখা, এখানে যাতে প্রত্যাবাসন বিরোধী কোনো কার্যক্রম গৃহীত না হয় সে বিষয়টি নজরদারি করা, পাশাপাশি প্রত্যাবাসন যাতে ত্বরান্বিত করা যায় এ ধরনের কার্যক্রম গ্রহণে দেশি বিদেশিদের সাথে এনজিওদের সাথে কাজ করা। আমরা এভাবেই মূলত কাজ করে থাকি। তো আমাদের এই কাজে মূলত এখানে কমিউনিটি লিডার হিসেবে মাঝিরা আছে যারা রোহিঙ্গা কমিউনিটি থেকেই সিলেক্টেড, তাদের আমরা সহায়তা নিয়ে থাকি বা তাদের সহায়তা পেয়ে থাকি। এছাড়াও এখানে সাইট ম্যানেজমেন্ট এজেন্সি আছে, বাংলাদেশ সেনাবাহিনী আছে, পুলিশ আছে, র্যাব আছে, ক্যাম্প স্বেচ্ছাসেবক আছে, আনসার আছে, তাদের সহায়তা নিয়েই আমরা সামগ্রিক কার্যক্রমটি এখানে পরিচালনা করে থাকি। তো এগুলো হচ্ছে ক্যাম্প ইনচার্জ হিসেবে আমার নিয়মিত কার্যক্রমের অংশ। এসব কার্যক্রমের পাশাপাশি আমরা যখন যে ধরনের পরিস্থিতির মুখোমুখি হই, যেমন কিছুদিন আগে আমরা আমফানের মুখোমুখি হয়েছিলাম, আমফান দুর্যোগ আমরা মোকাবিলা করেছি সমন্বিতভাবে। এখন আমরা কোভিড সিচুয়েশন মোকাবিলা করতেছি এবং আমি মনে করি যে আমরা এটা সফলভাবেই করতে পেরেছি। তার কারণ হচ্ছে আমাদের যে স্ট্যাটিস্টিক্স তাতে করে আমরা দাবি করতে পারি যে আমরা সফল হয়েছি। যেমন আমার এখানে 3টি ক্যাম্প রয়েছে, আমি 11 নম্বর ক্যাম্প, 11, 12 এবং 18। আমার 11 নম্বর ক্যাম্পে মোট জনসংখ্যা হচ্ছে 29,000, 12 নম্বর ক্যাম্পে হচ্ছে 25,654 জন এবং 18 নম্বর ক্যাম্পে 32,000। এই 3 ক্যাম্পে আমার এ পর্যন্ত আক্রান্তের সংখ্যা হচ্ছে মাত্র 3 জন এবং তারা 3 জনই সুস্থ হয়েছে, সুস্থ হয়ে বর্তমানে ক্যাম্পে অবস্থান করতেছে এবং এখানে কোনো মারা যাওয়ার কোনো ঘটনা এখন পর্যন্ত ঘটেনি। এ কারণে আমি বলবো যে এই ঘনবসতিপূর্ণ এরকম একটি জায়গায়, জনবহুল একটি জায়গায় আমরা এটাকে সাকসেসফুলি কন্টেইন করতে সক্ষম হয়েছি। এখন আপনাদের মধ্যে প্রশ্ন জাগতে পারে যে আমরা এটাতে কিভাবে আসলে সক্ষম হলাম, কারণ এটি একটি বিগ সাকসেস স্টোরি, আমরা কিভাবে এটাকে সম্ভব করলাম। তো সেটার প্রেক্ষিতে আমি যেটা বলতে চাই সেটা হচ্ছে যে 8 মার্চ যখন বাংলাদেশে প্রথম কোভিড পেশেন্ট চিহ্নিত হয়, তখনই আমাদের মধ্যে এক ধরনের একটা আশঙ্কা, বলবো না আমি, আমাদের মধ্যে একটা ভীতি ছড়িয়ে পড়ে যে জনবহুল এই জায়গায় যদি একবার কোভিড ছড়িয়ে পড়ে, এটা শুধু রোহিঙ্গাদের জন্য নয়, আমরাও যে কোনো সময় এটাতে আক্রান্ত হয়ে মারা পড়তে পারি এবং আমার গোটা দেশের জন্যই এটা একটা বড় ধরনের হুমকি স্বরূপ হয়ে উঠতে পারে। আমরা মূলত এই ভীতি থেকেই এটাকে কিভাবে কন্টেইন করা যায়, কিভাবে প্রিভেন্ট করা যায়, সে লক্ষ্যে আমরা সেক্টর, আইএসসিজি অ্যাক্টর যারা আছে, সরকারি বেসরকারি সকল সংস্থার সমন্বয়ে সহযোগিতায় আমরা কতগুলো পদক্ষেপ গ্রহণ করি। তার মধ্যে একটা হচ্ছে যে আমরা ওই চিহ্নিত হওয়ার পরপরই আমরা ক্যাম্পে ফরেনারদের প্রবেশটা আমরা রেস্ট্রিক্টেড করে দিই, যে এরা যাতে প্রবেশ করতে না পারে। তারপরে আমাদের অ্যাওয়ারনেস ক্যাম্পেইন যেগুলোতে মাস গ্যাদারিং হয়, সেগুলো আমরা সাময়িকভাবে বন্ধ ঘোষণা করে দিই। তারপরে আপনারা জানেন এখানে মূলত 8টা সেক্টরের মাধ্যমে সকল কার্যক্রম পরিচালিত হয়। তা আমরা এমার্জেন্সি ব্যতীত, যেমন ফুড, ওয়াশ, হেলথ এবং নিউট্রিশন ছাড়া বাকি সেক্টরের কাজগুলো আমরা সাময়িকভাবে বন্ধ করে দিই। তারপরে এখানে হাট বাজার যেগুলো আছে সেগুলোতে চলাচল নিয়ন্ত্রণ করি। সামাজিক অনুষ্ঠান যেমন বিয়ে, জন্মদিন, খেলাধুলা, এগুলো সাময়িকভাবে নিষিদ্ধ ঘোষণা করা হয়। লার্নিং সেন্টারের কার্যক্রমগুলো আমরা সাময়িকভাবে বন্ধ করে দিই। তারপরে হচ্ছে ডিস্ট্রিবিউশনে যাতে সামাজিক দূরত্বটা বজায় থাকে সে লক্ষ্যে আমরা ব্যবস্থা গ্রহণ করি। এছাড়াও রোহিঙ্গাদের ওভারঅল ইমিউনিটিটা যাতে ঠিক থাকে বা ইমিউনিটিটা যাতে বৃদ্ধি পায়, এই জন্য ডাব্লিউএফপির মাধ্যমে বিশেষ ফুড প্যাকেজ দেওয়া হয়। তাছাড়া হাইজিনিটি মেনটেন করার জন্য ক্যাম্পের বিভিন্ন জায়গায় আমরা ওয়াশিং ডিভাইস আমরা স্থাপন করি, মাস্ক বিতরণ করি। নিয়মিত বিরতিতে আমরা ড্রেনেজ ব্যবস্থা ক্লিনিং করার ব্যবস্থা করি। জনসমাগম স্থল যেগুলো আছে সেগুলোকে ডিসইনফেক্ট করার আমরা ব্যবস্থা করি। এছাড়াও আমরা এগুলো ব্যবস্থা নেওয়ার কারণে মোটামুটি এটাকে কন্টেইন করে রাখার একটা ভালো একটা পরিবেশ তৈরি হয়েছে। আর আমাদের এখানকার প্রস্তুতিটা একটু অন্য ধরনের। যেমন ভবিষ্যতে যদি বড় ধরনের কোনো ম্যাসাকার এখানে হয়, অনেক লোকজন মারা যায়, সেক্ষেত্রে কিভাবে এটা স্বাস্থ্যবিধি প্রতিপালন করে এই লাশ দাফন করা হবে, কোথায় দাফন করা হবে, কি কি এই দাফন কার্যে অংশগ্রহণ করবে, তাদেরকে ইতিমধ্যেই কিন্তু আমরা প্রশিক্ষণ দিয়েছি। তাদেরকে প্রোটেক্টিভ যে গিয়ার আছে, সুরক্ষা সামগ্রী আমরা সেটা দিয়েছি। তো এই কারণে ক্যাম্পের সামগ্রিক অবস্থানটা আমাদের এই কোভিডটা মোকাবেলা করতে আমরা সক্ষম হয়েছি। এটি একটি দিক। আর আরেকটি দিক আমি যেটা বলতে চাই, যেটা আমি শুরুতেই বলেছি, যে রোহিঙ্গা ক্যাম্পে কাজ করার আসলে বিভিন্ন দিক রয়েছে। যেমন একটি হচ্ছে মানবিক দিক, হিউম্যানিটেরিয়ান পার্সপেক্টিভটা, অন্যটি হচ্ছে প্রশাসনিক যে পার্সপেক্টিভটা। মানবিক দিক যদি আমরা এভাবে চিন্তা করি যে পার্শ্ববর্তী একটি দেশ থেকে কিছু লোক নির্যাতিত হয়ে বিতাড়িত হয়ে আমাদের দেশে আসলো, তারা এখানে একটা ছোট্ট জায়গার মধ্যে অনেকগুলা লোক বাস করতেছে। তাদের যে শেল্টার আমরা দিয়েছি সেটা 12 ফিট বাই 8 ফিট, সেখানে ক্ষেত্র বিশেষে 8-10 জন করে বসবাস করতেছে। যারা কবে তাদের দেশে ফিরে যাবে সেটার কোনো নিশ্চয়তা নাই, তাদের ভবিষ্যৎ কি সেটা তারা জানে না। এই বিবেচনা বোধ থেকে যখন আমরা কাজ করি, এটা একটি মানবিক দিক আমি বলি, হিউম্যানিটেরিয়ান পার্সপেক্টিভ। পাশাপাশি ক্যাম্প ইনচার্জ হিসেবে আমাদের কাজের একটি প্রশাসনিক দিকও রয়েছে, যে এই বিতাড়িত লোকগুলো যখন কোনো না কোনো অপরাধের সাথে জড়িত হয়ে পড়ে, তখন তাকে আমার নিয়ন্ত্রণের জন্য যে ব্যবস্থাগুলো গ্রহণ করতে হয় সেটা প্রশাসনিক দিক। যেমন কেউ যদি মাদক ব্যবসা করে তার বিরুদ্ধে আমার ব্যবস্থা নিতে হয়, কেউ নারী নির্যাতন করলে তার বিরুদ্ধে আমার ব্যবস্থা নিতে হয়, কেউ যখন অন্যান্য অপরাধের সাথে জড়িয়ে পড়ে, বহু বিবাহ করে, তারপরে মানব পাচারের সাথে জড়িয়ে পড়ে, ধর্ষণ করে, বিভিন্ন সন্ত্রাস গোষ্ঠীর সাথে যখন জড়িত হয়ে পড়ে, একজন অ্যাডমিনিস্ট্রেটর হিসেবে, ক্যাম্প ইনচার্জ হিসেবে হিউম্যানিটেরিয়ান রোলটার পাশাপাশি আমাকে অ্যাডমিনিস্ট্রেটিভ রোলটাও প্লে করতে হয়। বাট এই দুইটা দিক অনেকটা কনফ্লিক্টিং। তো সেক্ষেত্রে আমাদেরকে অনেকটা সমন্বয় করে, অনেকটা ম্যানেজ করে আমাদেরকে এই কাজটি করতে হয়। কিন্তু এটা ওভারঅল আমাদের দায়িত্বটাকে অনেকটা কঠিন করে তোলে আর কি। তো এই জন্য আমি বলি যে হিউম্যানিটেরিয়ান দিকটাকে যেমন আমরা স্বীকার করতেছি, এটাও ঠিক, আবার তাদের নিরাপত্তার জন্য, ক্যাম্পের সামগ্রিক পরিবেশের জন্য 5-10 জনকে শাস্তি দিয়ে ক্যাম্পের পরিবেশটা ঠিক রাখা, এটি হচ্ছে একটা প্রশাসনিক দিক। তো এই দুই দিকটা মেনটেন করেই আমাদেরকে এখানে চলতে হয়। তো আমি আমার ওভারঅল বক্তব্য আর বাড়াইতে চাই না, মনে হয় সময়ের কনস্ট্রেন্ট আছে। যদি কোনো প্রশ্ন থাকে আমি সেখানে প্রশ্নের আনসারে অংশ নিই। ধন্যবাদ।
Thank you, Mr. Rshadul, and he has wonderfully put the things into context from administrator's perspective and also as a from humanitarian angle. So, dear audience, he just explained his own experience in managing 3 camps, and specifically, he spoke about the management of COVID-19 outbreak in the camps. And the camps he administers directly, there is no death case, and it's I would say, a fantastic feat to achieve. And he also explained the measures that they have taken in the preparatory stages back in March, which might have contributed to the least infection in the camps. Thank you once again. So, for the sake of time, once again, we'll take only 2 questions from the audiences. And I'm just using my privilege as moderator today because, as I said, constraint of time, and it is late night in Bangladesh. So, the next question is possibly directed to Professor Dr. Afsana, and the question is very straightforward. How they deal with the psychological trauma, and of course, any other panelist wishes to answer, you are free to go. And this is here on the screen.
Okay, thank you very much. This is another sector, probably you know, that mental health and psychosocial counseling. And from the beginning, this program has been started. And somehow, as I told you, that I was at BRAC. So mental health and psychosocial counseling, BRAC was also very much engaged in this. So and it was not easy because at the beginning, what happened that when the refugees when the forcefully displaced populations from Myanmar, they're arriving in Bangladesh, that was a different scenario. So of course they are all traumatized, but at that time their need was, food, shelter, health from the beginning. But slowly you can understand that how people are actually, the trauma is actually shown in their activity, in their face and their work. So I remember that in one of the session, I can explain to you that what has happened, that in that particular session, we have been discussing with the younger mothers about their health situation and their children. And I found one woman, she was actually very, quiet, and she was, as I was alone with her, and she was complaining that, she was having this problem, that problem, health problem. So she was really seeking for medical consultations, and she was not happy with her medical consultations. So when we started that session, not we, I mean the counselor, they started the session having discussion with the women, their problems, and the solution, the fun, the sadness, everything. And slowly I saw that how that women started talking, participating, and within 2 hours, her face was like glowing. So you can immediately understand the trauma could be gone only when you can talk freely. So it's so important that how can you connect in that particular setting, because we always feel that, the Rohingya refugees, as they came from that Rakhine state, probably they know each other. Absolutely not. It is not like this. People who are living together, they may not know when they are in Myanmar. They are actually coming to know these people after they are now at this refugee camp. So once they start meeting and having kind of friendship in that particular session, and they have started having friendship with the other groups. That means it's like a peer group. So when you create a peer group, then they talk to each other, and I feel that the psychological trauma is minimized. I don't want to say that it is completely gone, but there are ways, and I already mentioned that there are psychologists and the para-counselors, parapsychologists are working, and they have been going house to house, and they're trying to find out who are actually suffering from all those problems. And now that you know that there is people are not able to move in the way, the humanitarian workers are not allowed to move the way it should be because of the COVID-19 situation, and this is absolutely right. So the telecounseling is one of the ways that you can reach out, and talk to those women and men, because this is absolutely a necessity, especially to minimize and or remove the psychological trauma. And in the case when they found that this is not treatable, but then this patient is sent to a referral. There are referral centers where psychiatrists are actually sitting. So there is a system to send the patient to the psychiatrist. So I hope that I am able to answer the question.
Thank you so much. I'll switch to next two questions, very interesting questions from the audience, and I would request Dr. Mazhar and Mr. Douza to kindly address these questions because these are somehow linked. So the first question is here, and the audience is trying to understand R2P stands for Responsibility to Protect, and it is a UN principle, and it was initiated by Canada back in the days. And this is the question that why not it is being what you call invoked and used, and also this is the second question, I think, connected to it, repatriation. And since Mr. Douza is right on the ground, he might be able to add more information. So these two questions I want to link together and ask Dr. Mazhar and Mr. Douza to respond because we want to see the future of this huge population in terms of repatriation, whether it is mutually or otherwise. Floor is yours.
Okay. First of all, to my layman understanding, repatriation is not going to happen because repatriation is needed to be made by two ways. One is if the population is willing to repatriate. That's the most important and most powerful way of repatriating. That whether the population itself is, and here is the mixed thing. Most people do not want to go back because they don't have any home back their home. I mean there is nothing called home there. I mean they have been, tortured, murdered, genocide, arson for so many long years in the history of Myanmar that they don't feel like going there. So that's a big thing that we need to understand, that the Rohingya population, they don't want to go back. And another thing, see, but repatriation is very important because Bangladesh cannot afford to feed them for so many long years in future. I mean that's not really possible on the part of the government of Bangladesh. So repatriation need to be happened by the state parties. But as we know until now, that the government of Myanmar are not, they are not interested to do that. They are doing all these kind of media kind of show and all these kind of, they are not sincere at all of doing that. These are all political rhetoricism. They're all political kind of gimmicks they're coming with, but to my understanding, they are not at all serious about that. So what is left? The left is third party. So what is that third party? Third party is always fluid. This is a fluid third party thing. And UN is a fluid thing. I mean, what is UN? UN is basically the members of the state. I mean, and so the members, the parties are not really sincere about doing that. I mean, they are. I mean, the global community. Furthermore, we don't have a global leadership right now. I mean, US is a failed leader, and you see there is not a proper mechanism of repatriation, and we don't have that strong kind of bargaining and negotiating operations, or the mandate. We have the mandate, but we don't have that practicality of doing that. I mean as a nation, we are not in a position to bargain it too much because India, China, and some other neighboring countries, they are not actually sincere of helping this in this matter, because this is kind of a sensitive thing and nobody want to intervene. Because if they intervene, if we say that, so you take some responsibility, if we tell India or China or any other country that you take some responsibility, they are not going to take that. So this is a very tricky situation. So this is a three-way thing. One is the community are not interested. The state the state of Myanmar is not interested, and the third party, they are not interested. So the repatriation comes a very far cry, to my understanding.
Thank you, Dr. Mazhar. Mr. Douza, please.
I think the repatriation is a big issue already. So, what is the role of UN? Actually, the main question is what is the role of UN? What is the role of ASEAN? Actually, what is the role of China and India? Actually, ASEAN people actually visited several times. Their issue is when the people send will go to Myanmar, they will actually make house for them. So the ASEAN people, ASEAN representative actually discussed with Rohingya people what's their demand actually. They did not answer any question from Rohingya. That's the problem. So ASEAN have not a significant role. China's ambassador and high official actually visited Rohingya camps. If China put pressure, there is something behind. But the intention of China is not clear to us actually. So they discuss and they give some proposal. This is not actually viable. Some community leader from this place actually they visit Myanmar and they will stay in Myanmar and then their family will live. This is not a viable actually. And what mother mentioned actually the Rohingya people did not don't want home. Actually, they only go back to their place of origin. Actually, if Myanmar is actually interested to back them their place of origin, rather can they will go and they will build their own house. And second thing is ethnicity and citizenship. Citizenship actually big question. If Myanmar government give them pressure to receive NBC, that's another massacre. And ethnicity actually Myanmar did not recognize ethnicity. And last is safety and security. Who will ensure the safety and security of Myanmar? This is actually barrier for repatriation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Douza. So now let me welcome our practicum student, Mr. Quazo, and he is doing his master's degree in Peace and Conflict Studies in Arthur V. Morrow Institute for Peace and Justice. Mr. Quazo, go ahead with your question to the panelist.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much to all the distinguished panelists. It's been a very, very informative session. My first question goes to Afsana about education. When we are talking about the mental health issues and the kind of thing that has happened to the Rohingya people and what is going on currently, in what do you think there should be a way that the history or the narrative should be sought in order for them not to react negatively towards it and cause more issues and problems in that region? That maybe there's a way that the history and, of the Rohingya people, maybe there's a way that the whole narrative could be sought that could rather inspire a way of solving the problem rather than inspiring negative sentiment against maybe the Myanmar government or anybody else. So if there's a way that maybe the narrative could be sorted that would affect positively their mental issues, I would like for us to discuss that one. And my second question goes to AKM. You spoke about cultural and social authenticity. I wanted to ask if there are any traditional, indigenous, maybe cultural institutions that exist among the Rohingya people even before all this crisis that could be developed or that could be built upon in order to authenticate the cultural and social authenticity. Because you said the UN currently in its mission has failed in the Rohingya crisis. And one of the ways that that could actually be a solution is maybe if we build upon the indigenous and traditional institutions that exist among the Rohingya people, how they themselves solve their own issues before the state, before culturally, how they solve their own issue before all this happened. So I wanted to ask if there are any traditional or indigenous or cultural institutions or peace building methods among the Rohingya people that are in place that could be employed to solve this particular issue. Then to Mr. Douza, you gave thank you very much for your historical narrative of the whole Rohingya crisis. I wanted to ask if all this that is going on, all this Rohingya crisis, once again, is a consequence of colonialism that we have seen in other parts of the world, that where colonial policies after long after colonialism has ended, continue to affect the current state or the current environment that we find ourselves in. Yes, so these are some of the issues that I think I wanted to understand. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your question. I think Mr. Douza actually explained the history. So when I spoke about the early childhood development, and that's where it lies, because the whole epigenetic change has happened over the years. It's not that only when they arrived in Bangladesh, the trauma they faced at that particular moment, because that is happening historically over the years, and the intergenerational change that epigenesis happened when the baby was in the womb. And imagine that how these things they're carrying out. So even if you like to we would like to change the narrative, it is not easy. It is quite challenging. Look at, I don't want to bring that example of, I wish I could bring, but I don't think we don't have time. Look at people, what happened in US very recently, and it's nothing new. And we actually, Canada, Australia, America, they forgot about that they actually occupied the lands of other people. They forgot that. And they destroyed the first generation people, almost they're non-existent in 3 big countries. So when we think about the Rohingya refugees, they're a smaller population. They lived in their own countries, and historical for a few hundred years, they're being tortured, and the changes has happened mentally, physically, and cognitive. And if you think that if you change the narratives, it's not easy in a day, but I feel that you can change because the environmental factors are also very important. So how could you change the environment? Because the environment is the refugee camp. In the refugee camp, do you know any refugee camp in the world has given any refugee a better status? And in Bangladesh, as Mazhar said, and also Mr. Douza said, this is not refugee, although we are all using the word refugee camps, but this is not recognized refugee camps. So won't be able to get this, even that environment in this particular setting. So I don't have the answer, but I feel that very short term, the work UN is doing, and we have been criticizing UN because they need to be criticized. I feel that they are actually staggering all those issues over the years, and it could have been resolved much earlier if we are if the global partnership is much stronger. The global partnership is very political, so we can see how this politics is affecting. But the short-term strategy, what we have been doing in all those settings, that yes, we are providing mental health support. We are also working on how can you have play-based learning so the children could have a better environment to learn and to heal and to have a better life. That's what we have been doing. But I always feel that this is a short fixing, and we shouldn't do all this quick and short fixing. It has to be done with a long-term strategy. So I'll stop.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kaudo, for this very interesting question. That is a very important questions, but it is not very easy to answer because, you know, in a camp, as what Professor Afsana just mentioned, that it is basically a camp, and the camp and home is not the same thing. I mean, when you are in a camp, you are kind of, half live your life. You are restricted by so many things that and the space. If you just When we mention about space, it's not only the physical space, it's also a psychological space. And when this is constrained, you cannot expect a kind of a solution that is expected. And you ask about the indigenous way of doing things. I mean, what they have been doing. If you see if you see their near history, the child who has got who has got an age of 18, or the young boy or a young girl who is just the age of 25, 26, she or he has just seen the arson, the looting, the killing, and that's it. They did not have a regular life back in Myanmar. They were also there in camp, and they did not have the call which is life. As I said, they are denied the citizenship. They are denied their human rights. They are denied, even they cannot make a concrete built home. They cannot make a fence. So this is the culture that they are having in Myanmar. And when they came here, they have got another kind of a new sphere where they are living now, where they cannot share their mind with their peer groups, because the local people, they welcome them from a very humanitarian ground. But it's after these days, that quote unquote humanitarian kind of thing is not working that much. And they are not allowed. Think about a teenage guy who are not allowed to do anything except for confining in the camp. He cannot engage himself or herself in any kind of work, any kind of higher education thing, or any kind of thing that assimilate with the mainstream population. So they are kind of this is the kind of a laboratory, and human cannot develop in a laboratory. So the indigenous culture that they inherited cannot be practiced here, because they are not indigenous here. There is a new population here. They are kind of a population who are very fluid. So this kind of assimilation problem remains. It will remain until there is a kind of a tangible, reasonable, honorable solution is being made. And what is that honorable solution? Probably we don't have a very good answer on that, because we are not going to give them home here. We are giving is a camp. So a camp life it's a half life. It's a subhuman kind of a situation. So the indigenous cultural orientation that you have been asking, probably that can be tried by giving them more space inside the camp. But again, we need to remember that this is a camp, and there is a limit for everything there. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mazhar. Mr. Douza, would you be answering his question, please, now?
Thank you again. What Dr. Mazhar mentioned, camp life is actually different life. Actually, government has so many agenda. Law enforcement is one of the big, some militancy and another issue. So it is not possible to give all facilities. It is not government. What actually there is some debate about education, but for some reason and other, what Rashad mentioned, so law enforcement is a big factor. In a small area, maintaining law enforcement is quite difficult. So not all are single storied like tarpaulin or other 70 or 80,000 people per square kilometer living in Camp 1 east west or something. So this is very much difficult. And cultural imbalance. Another thing Mr. Mother mentioned, in early days, the host community actually received warm-heartedly, but nowadays things are changing each and every day. The local people in a union like Jali Palongkhali, the population is 50,000, but now the Rohingya population is more than 500,000. What the people saw that he actually lost his market. In the marketplace, when he went marketplace earlier, he saw his familiar face. Now this place is like Dhaka town. He did not see any familiar face. This cultural remnant. Another thing is actually demographic imbalance is there. In two sub districts, the number of population is 500,000, but Rohingya population is 1 million. So there are some cultural problem and local. In another thing is, in some time we did not give permission to Rohingya people some work, but the local people, local vendor and other, they are using Rohingya people as day laborers. So distortion is labor market. It is another imbalance. And government established actually for mental health and psychosocial. Ministry of Women and Cultural Affairs is working actually. Some of their projects are working. Children actually they took some psychosocial and other issue for the children government. So this from my side.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So we are just at the end of the session, and but I just wanted to bring in Mr. Rshadul Islam, and very briefly, I would request Mr. Rashid to respond to a question which I'll ask in Bengali. জনাব রাশেদ, আপনার কাছে আমরা জানতে চাচ্ছি how আপনারা এনজিও অ্যাক্টিভিটিস গুলো মনিটর করছেন অথবা টু সাম এক্সটেন্ট কন্ট্রোল করছেন, এবং স্পেশালি গত 2 সেশনে রোহিঙ্গা যারা এখানে থাকেন ওনারা প্রশ্ন করেছেন হাউ জাস্টিফাইড ইন্টারনেট শাটডাউন, যেটা অথবা ইন্টারনেট হোয়াট ইউ কল ব্ল্যাক আউট যেটা চলছে ইন দি ক্যাম্পস, কারণ এটাতে এখানে যারা থাকেন তারা অনেকে ওয়ারিড, কমিউনিকেশন করতে পারছেন না তাদের আত্মীয় স্বজনদের সাথে যারা ক্যাম্পে আছেন। তো এনজিও বা সাইড এবং ইন্টারনেট ব্যাপারে মনিটরিং অথবা কন্ট্রোলের ব্যাপারে আপনি একটু যদি আমাদের অডিয়েন্সকে সংক্ষেপে বলেন আপনার পার্সপেক্টিভটা। ফ্লোর ইজ ইয়ার্স। মাইক আনমিউট করুন।
জি, ধন্যবাদ আপনাকে। আমি প্রথমেই বলতে চাই, একটু আগে দোজা স্যার এবং অন্যান্য সম্মানিত প্যানেলিস্টরা যেটা বলেছে যে ক্যাম্প লাইফ অ্যাকচুয়ালি ইজ এ ডিফারেন্ট লাইফ, ইউ ক্যানট এনশিওর অল দ্য থিংস। এখানে আপনি আপনার বাসা বাড়িতে যে সুবিধাটা ভোগ করেন বা আপনার হোমল্যান্ডে যে সুবিধাটা ভোগ করছেন সেটার সবকিছুই আপনি এখানে পাবেন তা না। এই ইন্টারনেট না থাকার যে অসুবিধাটা, এটা কিন্তু আমরাও ফেস করতেছি এখানে। কারণ হচ্ছে যে আমি যখন ক্যাম্পে থাকতেছি আমি কিন্তু সব ধরনের ইন্টারনেট কানেক্টিভিটি থেকে বঞ্চিত হচ্ছি, এবং অনেকাংশে আমি কক্সবাজার থেকে যে আমি অফিস করি আমার ফ্যামিলির সাথে যোগাযোগই থাকে না। তো সুতরাং এটার সমস্যা আমরাও ফিল করতেছি। আমার মনে হয় এতটুকু মেনে নিতে হবে এই কারণে যে এটা কোনো স্বাভাবিক লিভিং প্লেস না, আসলে এটা একটা বিশেষ অবস্থায় স্থাপিত একটি লিভিং প্লেস। সুতরাং এতটুকু আমার মনে হয় যে আমাদের মেনে নিতে হবে। আর দ্বিতীয়ত হচ্ছে এনজিও অ্যাক্টিভিটিস, আমরা যেটা কন্ট্রোল আমি বলবো না, আমরা একটি এনজিও অ্যাক্টিভিটিস কন্ট্রোল করি না, তবে ক্ষেত্র আমরা মনিটরিং করি। যেটা আমি আমার বক্তব্যের শুরুতেই বলেছিলাম, মনিটরিংটা বা সমন্বয়টা এই পর্যায়ে যে একই এনজিও বা ডিফারেন্ট এনজিও দেখা যাচ্ছে একই ধরনের ত্রাণের আইটেম তারা দিচ্ছে বা দিতে চাচ্ছে, বা 5 দিন আগেই হয়তো এই জিনিসটা দেওয়া হয়েছে, আর একজন এসে হয়তো সেই জিনিসটা দেওয়ার প্রপোজালটা দিচ্ছে আমাদেরকে। তখন আমরা যেটা করি তাদেরকে আমরা বলি যে এই জিনিসটা দেওয়া হয়ে গেছে বা এটার ব্ল্যাঙ্কেট কাভারেজ আমরা কয়েকদিন আগেই কাভার করেছি, আপনি এটা বাদ দিয়ে এর পরিবর্তে আপনি অন্য কিছু দেন। আমরা মূলত এইভাবে জিনিসটাকে আপনি যদি নিয়ন্ত্রণ বলেন বা মনিটরিং বলেন বলতে পারেন, এভাবে করি। কিন্তু ওভারঅল নিয়ন্ত্রণ বলতে যেটা সেটা আমরা করি না, কারণ তারা সরকারের কাছ থেকে অথবা জাতিসংঘের অর্থায়নেই যখন এটা কোনো কার্যক্রম নিয়ে আসে, সেটার আমাদের দিক থেকে এটাকে নাকচ করা বা প্রত্যাখ্যান করার কোনো সুযোগ নেই। কারণ এনজিও বিষয়ক ব্যুরো যে প্রকল্পটা দেয় তারা এটার প্রয়োজন অনুভব করেই সেটা এখানে দেয়, বা সরকারের বিধিনিষেধ মেনেই সেটা দেয়। আর জাতিসংঘের মাধ্যমে যখন কোনো প্রকল্প আসে সেটাও সরকারের মেনেই আসে। সুতরাং এখান থেকে এটা ফিল্টারিং হওয়ার সুযোগ খুব কম। তবে আমরা যাতে ডুপ্লিকেশন না হয়, এটার যাতে মিস ইউজ না হয়, সেটা আমরা নিশ্চিত করার জন্য কাজ করি। ধন্যবাদ।
Thank you very much, dear panelists. We are at the concluding part. So before we leave, we typically request all the panelists to have their last words, if I may say so. So please, say whatever you wanted to say today and wrap up the whole presentation. So we'll start with Dr. Afsana first, followed by Dr. Mazhar and Mr. Douza, and finally Mr. Rshadul Islam. And your last words, please.
So, as I have started with play-based learnings, I would like to say that what is important, and I would like to quote from Anthony Costello, who actually is the Chief Executive Officer, Executive Director of UNICEF, and he said that neglect of young children most in need is outrage and a huge strategic mistake. So we have to remember that we cannot neglect the children. So children is our future, and we have to create a world for them so that they can also bring the dream for us in the future, and so they can have a dignified and a very meaningful life in the world. So I'll end my speech, and thank you so much for inviting us.
Mr. Mazhar, can you? Yeah, you are back. Go ahead.
Okay, okay, thank you. My only and one concern about the whole thing is that uh, I don't see much of seriousness on the issue of Rohingya crisis, if I want to call it a crisis, from the government part and from the community part, and from the third party, which is called the global community. So it is a problem. It is a crisis. So the very acronym called crisis, when you name it and you bear it for a long time, so your crisis becomes a habit. So let's not make crisis becomes a habit. Thank you.
Mr. Douza, please.
আমি বাংলায় বলি, এক হচ্ছে মাজার ভাই যেটা বললেন সেটার সাথে একটা সেটা, আর আপনারা যারা বাইরে আছেন তাদেরকে বলবো, এখানে চায়না আর ইউএস ফ্যাক্টর, তারা যদি চায় হবে না, এটা তো মানে এটা এই প্রবলেম চলতেই থাকবে। 78 হয়েছে, 92-তে এসে 16, 17, এটা কন্টিনিউ, কখন শেষ হবে? আমরা ফেরত পাঠাইলেও তো সাস্টেন করতেছে না। এই জন্য যারা অন্য পার্ট, যাদের রোল থাকার কথা, তারা কিন্তু রোল করছে না। আর সেটা তারা ইন্টেনশনালি বা এখানে আসে আমাদের প্রশংসা করে, দু একটা বাক্য বলে আপনারা ভালো করছেন, আমরাও খুব খুশি। আসলে খুশি হওয়ার কিছু নেই, তারা তাদের কাজ করে যাচ্ছে। মায়ানমারে আর অল্প কিছু আছে, তারা তাদের কাজ করে যাচ্ছে। এখন আমরা আতঙ্কে আছি ওদের কখন পাঠায় আর কি, এটা সবসময় একটা আতঙ্ক থাকে। আর যাতে না পাঠায়, আর এদেরকে যাতে চায়না প্রেসার দিলে কিছুটা হলে রিজলভ হবে, আদারওয়াইজ এরা আসতেই থাকবে, যেতে থাকবে। আর এই এই এটাই আজকে অংশগ্রহণের জন্য, দাওয়াত দেওয়ার জন্য ধন্যবাদ। আসসালামু আলাইকুম।
মিস্টার রাশেদ।
জি, আমি আমি আমার লাস্ট ওয়ার্ড আমি যেটা বলতে চাই সেটা হচ্ছে যে রোহিঙ্গাদের অধিকার ফিরিয়ে দিতে হবে, এবং রোহিঙ্গাদের এই অধিকার ফিরিয়ে দেওয়ার মাধ্যমে আমার দেশের মানুষের, এই অংশের মানুষের অধিকারকে সমুন্নত করতে হবে। ধন্যবাদ আপনাকে।
Thank you, esteemed panelists. Once again, I appreciate on behalf of Conflict and Resilience Research Institute Canada your brilliant insights. I would say each of you has brought different dimensions to this discussion and dialogue. On behalf of this institute, I can tell you that we are trying to keep up the dialogue in this very troubled time. As you know, interest on Rohingya issues is fading very fast in Canada. I live here, I work here, and we are on this topic since 2018. And I would request esteemed panelists, if you have some interest, please visit our site, cric.org, and you will find the book we published. We have captured some of the themes that you brought up today. So today's session was very important, and I would say a very holistic session, because of one side, as I mentioned in the beginning, administrators and the scholars, those who have, were working on this issue. Before ending, we would also like to appreciate your patience and time. It is possibly midnight in Bangladesh, and we particularly are grateful for all of your wholehearted participation into this humble effort of keeping the discussion open. And the great takeaway from today's discussion, as I understand, is international community and also China and USA, two big powers, and their continuous pressure on to Myanmar to do that. And Bangladesh has done enough, and Bangladesh has continued to do enough for this group of desperate people. And international community, those who are listening today from Ottawa and other places, they have heard you, and I believe there will be a further discussion on this topic in the future. So once again, stay fine, stay safe, and thank you very much from the Institute as well. Have a good night, and we'll meet each other again in the future.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed, for having us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.